Welcome back to Special Educators Resource Room Podcast. This is Jennifer from Positively Learning. I'm so glad that you're here. Last week, in episode 166, we talked about bottlenecks in your classroom. Those narrow points where everything just kind of bunches up and starts to slow down. And I heard from you. Well, I heard from two people. I was super excited about that. And you said, oh, I can see that. You could see where things were stalling. This week, we're going to build on that because even when you widen those bottlenecks, even when your systems start to feel more solid, there can still be something that is quietly draining your energy. And it's this. You might be feeling like you are powering the whole classroom. You're the power button. Or that your classroom only runs when you are actively activating it. If you've ever felt those things, this episode is for you. And if your energy feels low right now, feel free to borrow mine. I've had my coffee. Let's make this feel lighter. There's a specific kind of exhaustion that doesn't get named enough. It's not the behaviors, it's not the paperwork, it's not the meetings. It's activation fatigue. This might look like you constantly starting, cueing, prompting, reminding, transitioning, explaining, re-explaining, redirecting, restarting. Even when things are quote unquote fine, you are still the ignition switch. And that means if you sit down, things will wobble. If you step out, things might stall. And if you're focusing in on one student, 5 other students might be waiting on you. And that's not a classroom management issue. And it's not that students can't do it. It's that the room is still depending on you to function. And when one person is powering the whole system, that person can burn out. And most importantly, I want you to know this isn't about working harder. You don't need more energy. You don't need a better classroom management. You don't need to totally redesign things. We just need to have fewer activation moments. If you can reduce how many times per hour you have to be the person to manually start something, your day's going to feel lighter already. Not perfect, but lighter. And lighter is sustainable. In last week's episode, we talked about bottlenecks. We talked about identifying the narrow lane. This week, we're going to build on that, but we're also going to talk about something slightly different because even when the lanes are wide open, if you are still the engine, it can feel heavy. You can have smooth transitions. You can have clear materials. You can have those routines in place. But if students are still looking at you before moving, it means you're still powering it. So now we're moving away from diagnosing the system. And now we're going to talk about how to reduce your activation load inside the system. So let's make this super practical. Not philosophical, not complicated, just usable. Here are 3 ways to reduce activation. Number 1, reduce verbal starts. How many times per day do you say, okay, get started, go ahead, take this out, begin, start working? That's what I mean by activation. What if the start didn't require you? What if the task was face up? The first problem was circled. There were clear visual directions that were student accessible. A clear start here. Materials are already in order. The timer is already running. So when a student sits down, they immediately move. You've just eliminated one activation moment. Now multiply that by 15 students. Then multiply that by 6 blocks. That's how you're going to get relief. Number 2, reducing the what now moments. This is a quiet drain. Students finish, they pause. They look at you, not because they're stuck, but because the system came to a stop. If every finished task requires some type of new direction, you're going to be restarting that engine all day long. So instead, we want to build the next step into the structure, into the system. It could look like the student is finished, they place it in a bin, then they grab the next folder. Or student has finished, they place it in a tray, and then they go to their reading chair. Or maybe the student is finished, they reset the workspace, and then they choose from 2 options. There's no asking, no permission, no activation. The system is just continuing, and that feels lighter. Number 1 was all about getting started. Number 2 was what to do when you finish. Number 3 is going to sneak up on us. This is reducing micro corrections, and I feel this one. You might be adjusting posture, correcting pencil grip, reminding about spacing, redirecting volume. You're clarifying those instructions. And again, they're individually very small, but collectively, it's exhausting. Ask yourself, can this be made more obvious instead? Because these things are important. We don't want to ignore it. But what can we do to remove you from always being the person that's doing the correcting? Is there a visual model that you could put on a desk? Is there a sample completed example that students can reference? Are there clear boundary lines? Is there a defined workspace? Every time we use clarity to replace correction, you're going to save energy. Those are 3 practical areas to take a look at. You don't need a new professional development or new strategies or new theories, just practical steps to try out. When that activation feels like it's beginning to decrease, something's going to shift. Your room might not feel so chaotic, not because students are working silently, but because you are not narrating everything. Maybe you could sit down for a few minutes. Could you imagine having the time to collect data, answer an email, support a student one-on-one, and the rest of the room just keeps on going? It's not magic, it's structure. Doing some of this work with the structure feels a lot lighter than having to constantly redirect. And if you're listening to all of this and thinking, okay, I can see it, but I don't have time to redesign all of this from scratch, I would agree with you. That's exactly why the Task Box Club exists, because you shouldn't have to engineer all of this by yourself. Inside the membership, yes, there are a lot of tasks. And I know when I upload new ones, that's what gets excitement. But here's why it's not about more stuff. It's about not having to build it from scratch because these tasks already have the structure. They already have clear starting points and a clear finish, defined expectations and natural stopping points. So you don't have to decide how many problems they're going to do, create your own boundaries, reformat everything, and then explain it 3 times. You can just plug it in. Students start, students work, students finish, and you are breathing. It's not depth, it's not theory, it's just relief. You do not need to power the entire classroom. And if it feels like you are, that's not a sign you need to work harder. It's just a sign that we need fewer activation points. This week, be on the lookout for where you're saying the word start the most, and then where your students are pausing for you. And where are you always repeating directions? We want to pick one of these spots and make it more obvious. Make it more self-running and make it feel lighter. You don't have to overhaul everything. We just want to reduce the load. And if you do want independent work that's already built to carry some of that weight for you, you know where to find it. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll catch you next time in the Special Educators Resource Room. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'm dying to ask, what'd you think? Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. You can find the show notes and links for everything mentioned in this episode at positivelylearningblog.com. See you next week for more special education solutions.